And still to come, a CNBC exclusive with the CEO of Deere, Sam Allen. His take on President Trump, trade, job creation, and much more. Then the president.
U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao confirming the president will unveil a $1 trillion infrastructure plan later this year. For more on the future of American infrastructure and competitiveness under the Trump administration, we are joined in a CNBC exclusive interview by the CEO of Deere Company, Sam Allen. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
So were you encouraged, Sam, to hear that infrastructure plan might be unveiled this year? Some were thinking it was a 2018 story.
Yeah, it was, I think, our group, specifically Deere, but also from the council standpoint that I represent here as well, was thinking probably it would be in 18. But yes, I'm very encouraged that potentially it might be taken up this year, especially if they can bring everybody together in a bipartisan fashion and talk about passing something and funding it. Those will be the keys.
Well, I have to say, of all the major Trump legislative items, there's the most hope for bipartisan support of infrastructure. And that certainly is viewed by the market to be good for Deere. The stock is up more than 20% since the election. What are your expectations for specifics on what that infrastructure plan would look like, where the money would go, and how it would be funded?
So let me start by saying my expectation, even if everyone works together in a bipartisan fashion and it moves forward quickly, I know the administration is hoping to inject it into the marketplace quickly, but I would expect it's going to take some time, just like last time. There's no such thing as shovel ready. So I would expect that it will be at least 18 months down the road once it passes and is funded that we'll really start seeing the stimulative effect, but it would be a very long-term type effect. It's something that would probably affect our industries for at least 5 to 10 years as those plans and programs were implemented. So it's positive, but I would also say, at least on a personal level, my opinion is it's going to take a while before it really has a major impact on what's going on in the marketplace.
Sam, in the meantime, the administration turning its attention to tax reform, does that send shivers down your spine if it means the border adjustment tax is used to fund all of this, even if the tax cut helps Deere? Where do you guys stand on this whole piece of legislation?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the border adjustment tax actually would help us. We're a significant net exporter, so on a Deere & Company level, it would be a positive. We're very concerned, however, for our farmer customers. If, as a result of the adjustment tax, it had an unintended consequence of causing countries like China and Mexico to buy their ag commodities from other countries, that would be negative for U.S. farmers that do a lot of exporting to China, Canada, and Mexico. So as it moves forward, I think the real thing that we will be watching for and trying to also counsel on is make sure we don't have an unintended consequence that really impacts U.S. ag exports.
And Sam, I want to drill down on that a little bit because the rhetoric toward China and Mexico in particular has been hot coming from the Trump administration. As a company that deals globally and needs to see growth in countries like that, if all attention starts turning to just doing business with companies inside our own borders, and those countries do that as well, that hurts you, does it not?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, any form of protectionism or nationalism on the whole is not beneficial for a company like ours, any global company. We will adjust. We will have to adjust. But it takes time for a manufacturer to adjust. It's much more efficient if we can have open, free trade, understandably fair trade, but free trade. We happen to be well positioned in both those countries, especially in China. We have a number of plants there that produce product for the Chinese market. We don't export it from there. It's mostly for the Chinese market. So in the near term, it wouldn't be as impactful on us as it might be on some. But still, it's in our view, it's not something that is a pro-growth type of policy if we end up stimulating a number of countries to end up protecting their borders.
Sam, you mentioned your farming customers and clients. How are they reacting? How is that community reacting to some of the recent immigration orders? Clearly, it's a big source of immigrant, both documented and undocumented labor in this country. How are they reacting?
Well, I haven't had a chance to spend time with farmers all over. I have spent time with farmers, especially on the West Coast. There is definitely concern that it will drive away labor that is required. There's so many, especially in vegetable production, citrus production, grape production. There's a lot of manual labor required in there, and certainly migrant workers are a very, very important part along the West Coast, along Texas, from an agricultural standpoint. And so there is some trepidation as it relates to that. Hopefully, as this moves forward, it will be done in a fashion that we won't have that negative impact to the degree that people are talking about right now. Right now, it's mostly talk. I think the policy will be more supportive in the end.
Crop prices have been down. You know, we've been talking to you for the last few years almost. I don't know if you'd call it a recession, but you did sound an optimistic note in the last quarterly earnings call. Is the worst over for the agriculture cycle?
Well, you never know. That's one thing about the ag cycle. It is unpredictable. But, you know, tomorrow comes out the latest planting intention report from USDA, and what I would say is the most people right now are predicting that there will be a move from corn planting to soy planting. Could be even more than some people are predicting. And if that were to happen and you would get back to trendline yields, which is pretty realistic assumption, actually then commodity prices could move up in the next year, and that would add to our growing optimism that the worst is behind us at this point in time.
Investors look to be giving you the benefit of the doubt. The stock up 36.5% in the last 12 months. Sam, good to check in with you. Thanks for joining us from the Council on Competitiveness. Sam Allen, the CEO of Deere.